Hello there, aquatic adventurers. Welcome back to Musicland Stories, the origin point for all music and adventure stories in the known universe, and some of the unknown ones. And we're here at the Musicland Concert Hall. I'm your trusted narrator, the Captain, and there appears to be some sort of big ball thing blocking our path. Also possibly covered in glitter? Unclear. Let's back up a moment. I've been on an exciting odyssey under the sea with a crew of young musicians, searching for the legendary last Leviathan. That was the original point of our journey anyway. We had been hoping to record its fabled song for the archives at the Musicland Concert Hall, but other things took priority. It turns out there are a lot of wonderful creatures out there in the depths, many with their own songs to share, and even more who need our help, which is how we ended up low on fuel, carefully coasting our way home. At least we were heading that way until this big, glittery ball thing appeared here in our path. There's not a lot of light at the bottom of the ocean, which is how this kind of barrier can surprisingly sneak up on you. I'm not really sure how it was glittering so much without any light to reflect, but light waves, like sound waves, even ocean waves, they work in strange and wonderful ways. Luckily, I wasn't alone in the ship. I headed downstairs to the common room where the rest of my crew was practicing their instruments. Sorry to interrupt your sonic bonding, I said, but there's something outside I think you should see. That was all it took. Margie stood up from the drum set, dropped her sticks, and headed towards the airlock, and the rest of them followed in suit. By which I mean scuba suits. And together we went splashing into the freezing waves to find out what was in our way. They were all as stunned as I was when they saw that rainbow shimmer sparkle through the darkness. Well, all of them but Margie. She knew precisely what we were looking at. She swam up and around the big ball-like figure, looking for what seemed to be the creature's face? Huh, I must have missed that. Though, to be fair, it was much smaller than the bulge that was blocking us. Margie confirmed her suspicions and returned to the group.
I saw this once, back on High Brazil,
she said over the intercom in her scuba mask. She was referring to the mystical island we had visited not too long ago. The High Brazilians had helped Margie out after a tussle with a sea snail. It's a long story. Go back to episode 5 if you want to hear more. It's a sea unicorn, Margie explained, motioning up at its familiar snout and the less familiar horn on top of it. Kind of like a seahorse, but a bit more magical. That's why he glitters in the dark. It was Omar, the youngest of our crew, who asked the obvious question. How do you know that he's a he? Easy, Margie pointed at the sea unicorn's big round belly. He's pregnant. Seahorses and the rest of their fishy family, including pipefish, leafy sea dragons, along with High Brazilian sea unicorns, apparently. These are some of the only animals in the world where the males, not the females, carry the babies. The ladies still lay the eggs, but the guys help out with the rest of the process, up to and including the final delivery. Which means that big ball thing blocking our path, that was a big old pouch filled with 100, yes, 100 little baby sea unicorns. And according to Margie, that big papa was just about to burst. She swam back down to the rest of the group and instructed us to head back to the ship. Except for Mingus, Margie's twin, the bass line to her kick drum. Mingus was hard of hearing, which meant he also had a knack for talking without sound. Those signs and gestures come in handy when you have to say something to a sentient sea creature who might not speak your language. The twins made their way around the sea unicorn's big belly, flailing their arms to get his attention. Once you got past the pouch, the sea unicorn itself wasn't that humongous. Bigger than a seahorse, sure, but still about the size of a regular stallion, like the kind you'd see on land. Now imagine that stallion had a horn on his head and was sort of in a mood on account of, being just about to give birth and all. He thrust his horn at the twins, first once, then twice, slicing through the waves to protect his kin. Totally understandable behavior. Also, kinda terrifying. But Margie was nothing if not brave. She raised her hands in a gesture of peace, then began to breathe, establishing a slow, steady rhythm for the sea unicorn to see. The bubbles from her breath had a calming effect on the creature, at least enough for the creature to lower its horn. Mingus came up behind his sister and did his best to sign their situation. The sea unicorn nodded as he explained that we were friends, but also low on fuel, and maybe there was some way we could help each other out. It seemed the sea unicorn had also gotten lost among the underwater noise pollution, like so many of the other animals we'd met beneath the waves. Margie and Mingus offered to help guide him home, if he could maybe tow us along. The rest of us watched this conversation play out from the safety of the cockpit. So you can imagine our surprise as the signing swelled until it finally burst in a most remarkable gesture. The sea unicorn bowed his head down to the twins, who threw their legs around his neck, mounting the fish like a horse. They radioed back over to the ship, where we did our best to make a hitch, kind of like a horse and cart, but a submarine and sea unicorn instead. That's basically the same thing. Once everything was set, Margie tapped her foot on the magnificent creature's side, prompting him to trot forward, and whoa! The sea unicorn's steed took off through the waves with the lurch and the heave, dragging our ship behind him. It was a trip. Imagine riding a giant horse underwater, leaving a trail of glitter in your wake as you rush to the hospital to deliver a baby. And oof, was he in quite the hurry. Yeah! Margie shouted, toes tapping in time, like she was living out her best deep-sea wild western fantasy. We could hear every yip and cry through the intercom system. The twins were having the time of their lives. Omar and Ezra stayed in the cockpit. We were doing our best to help maneuver the majestic fish back home, or at least whatever nest we noticed through echolocation. Then something shifted. The sea unicorn jerked upwards, which sent me and the rest of the crew on the ship all crashing backwards, or downwards, or nautical directions are confusing, even when you're not hitched to a sea bronco. I was still trying to steady my sea legs when I heard the intercom crackle again.
So, we might not have made it,
Margie said. Her words were cut off by a bubble-sounding squeal, an ear-piercing horse whinny, but with much more gargling. Is everything all right out there? I asked. Margie forced a laugh.
I think the sea unicorn just went into labor,
she said. There was another splash and shout in the background. I've seen quite a few unicorns give birth over the years. But a sea unicorn? That was something new. Still, I tried to hide my excitement. I told Margie, keep it cool, keep the beat, keep him breathing steady. Margie tried to push back.
I'm not prepared for this,
she said. I laughed, saying, Margie, you're a drummer, girl. This is what you do. Margie repeated the words right after me.
This is what I do.
Over the intercom, I could hear her change the rhythm in her trotting kicks. She breathed in sync with her feet as she tapped her heels against the sea unicorn's side. Slowing. Steady. Soon, our ship had stabilized, sloshing forward through the water with the same regular rhythm. Slowing. Steady. Slowing. Steady. Maybe we weren't moving with the same momentum as before, but we were moving. Slowly, steadily, churning towards the nest as the sea unicorn tried to keep himself from wavering beneath the waves. Slowly, steadily. Then, we started picking up tempo again. That was fine. That was normal for, giant sea unicorns who were actively in labor. But Margie did her best to rein it in. Slowing. Steady. Not quite as slow, but mostly steady, slowing, steady, slowing, steady, slowing, steady, slowing, steady, slowing. And that's when we saw the dragon. Sea dragon, technically, but still a dragon of sorts. There it was, guarding the nest where our sea unicorn steed was hoping to birth his babies. A massive sea dragon, flapping its leaf-like fins. It arched its back and leaned its fiery snout closer. Closer. Margie called out over the intercom.
Keep the rhythm going. Ezra, Omar, steady breathing. Kaylee, you can keep them on the beat.
And the crew of kids rushed to work, grabbing their instruments to broadcast a birthing beat across the sea. And still, the sea dragon swooped in closer. Closer still, beating wings through water like clusters of kelp. It heaved its chest, stretched its arms out wide, and began to exhale. Margie threw her arm up over her eyes, hoping to shield her face. From what? We were underwater. Leafy sea dragons are just another member of the pipefish family, same as seahorses and their magical cousins. When Margie opened her eyes again, she realized that the sea dragon wasn't breathing fire. She was simply breathing, in time with the sea unicorn, as he welcomed his beautiful babies into the world. The sea dragon wasn't attacking, she was helping. Just like any concerned mommy might do at the birth of their child, or children in this case. 100 of them. I think it was 107, maybe, when we finally counted. Little upright unicorn dragonfish babies, only seconds old and already swimming sweetly through the sea. I guess we made it just in time, Margie said. She signed to Mingus, and the twins dismounted from their sea unicorn steed, stunned in awe of the sight of so many majestic little fish, all of them half sea unicorn and half sea dragon. A beautiful blend of two fantastical creatures. Kind of like a mule, but with more glittery fins. Of course, the rest of the crew on the ship couldn't resist such an adorable sight. And we all swiftly donned our scuba suits again and dove out to join the underwater baby shower. Is a baby shower called a shower when you're out in the ocean? I'll have to think about that. Margie and Mingus followed the affectionate sea unicorn as he introduced them to his newborn babies. Or at least that's what it looked like he was doing. I don't speak sea unicorn so well. I don't think Margie does either. The mother sea dragon followed closely behind them. What we thought had been a fuming snout turned out to be a prideful grin. She was so happy to see her family back together. And Margie, of course, she was just happy to help with such a magical miracle of life. So happy, in fact, that she'd almost forgotten how she'd kept the crew on beat. and helped our ship get closer to home without wasting any supersonic fuel. We weren't out of the water yet, though. We may have given up our search for the last Leviathan, but our journey was far, far from over. You'll have to come back another time to hear about the rest. For now, this is your captain. Out. Musicland Stories is a collaboration between Starglow Media and Double Elvis. Executive producers from Double Elvis are Jake Brennan and Brady Sattler. Executive producers from Starglow Media are Jed Baker and Agarenish A. Palmer. This episode of Musicland Stories was written by Tom Dunn. Alessandro Santoro is our showrunner. Narration by me, Nikki Lynette. Original score by Scott Janovitz. Story editing by Zeph Lundy. An episode mixed by Matt Tahaney. Grown-ups, you can find more ad-free audio fun for the whole family by subscribing to Starglow Plus on Apple or wherever you listen to podcasts.